All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case over on Rumble, of course, where Mrs. Tag says, trad wife, faux life. Got all sorts of stuff to talk about now. The Alvin Bragg's case, obviously, the big news. We're going to be parsing that apart. I did talk about it this morning. I wanted to talk about a few other related things with regards to his case and people that are claiming, well, Congress can't do anything about Alvin Bragg. Yeah, they can. And there are several reasons why I think that they will find that to be concerning to them. Biden admin and the Mar-A-Lago raid. It turns out that the Biden administration did lie with regards to the Mar-A-Lago raid. Whoops. I'm just going to read the tagline here now. The FBI gained access to Trump documents through a White House special access request. Funny, because I heard that the White House only heard about the raid until after it happened. So there's a blatant lie there. Elon Musk trolling the BBC and many other things that we have to talk about. That's a twofer, actually. There are two links in the description. You can follow along, by the way. There are links in the description to everything that I'm talking about today. But first, we must make sure we're live on Rumble, where, by the way, Clankdom now, I'm happy to announce, has 140,000 subscribers. So if you ain't on Rumble, you should definitely be joining up. Of course, I am live streaming on both YouTube and Rumble, and Rumble won't randomly kick me off for no reason. So, going forward into the 24 election, it might be worth your while. Fallen Hero 4567 sent 3 upside down smile emojis. Quite a comment there, my friend. I clank to you. And we have Dictator Dave. Good morning, Clankers. WMD1, 140K. Congrats, dude. Yes, taking a victory lap there. This is the second platform after YouTube that we have that kind of audience on. And Twitter also following through, getting fairly close. I think getting up towards 130,000 actually on Twitter. So Clankdom, as predicted, having its decade at the moment, despite what some people may claim. There are people out there that don't like me. I wonder fucking why. Anyway, we'll get right to the news. The first news story, Manhattan DA Bragg sues GOP House Judiciary Chairman to prevent interference in Trump case. Oh, what loaded language from CNN, by the way. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg is suing House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan over what the lawsuit filed Tuesday describes as transparent campaign to intimidate and attack his office's case against former President Donald Trump, who is a private citizen, I would note at this time. That does play a role in the legality of this particular investigation. The suit injects more legal drama into Bragg's investigation of Trump, which has been dogged for weeks by accusations from Republicans and from many independents and even some liberals, by the way, but they leave that out, that the prosecutor's pursuit of the former president was purely political, which it is, with the claims being central to Jordan's own probe. Yes, indeed. Bragg is seeking to block subpoenas that are being issued by Congress. There are a plethora of problems with his particular legal case here. Now, Congress has wide purview to investigate pretty much everything it wants. It cannot, however, impugn upon executive or judiciary functions. So the case itself cannot be, for instance, Congress can't vote along party lines because it's run by the GOP. They can't simply vote to end Alvin Bragg's investigation or something to that matter. They can impugn upon it. They can endanger it. That being said, Alvin Bragg is in the ignominious position of being the DA for a position in which it takes federal funding, having filed an indictment that is effectively subjugate to federal law. Alvin Bragg's indictment, if you read it, and it's not even entirely clear what the nitty-gritty is because he didn't include that, effectively levies 34 different charges with regards to payments, business fraud, etc. At the felony level, again, most of them would be misdemeanors under normal circumstances. They upgraded the charges artificially for political reasons because Bragg's office typically does the opposite. We know that. That's old news at this point. The problem is that he's subjugating that to the 2016 election. Well, election law is federal. It's not state level whatsoever. If Congress wants to weigh in and investigate what he is doing, they appear to have legal purview to do so. I would further point out Alvin Bragg is not a judge. He's not a member of the judiciary. He's a DA. He's an elected official who works subjugate to the judiciary system. His particular case, while legal in nature, is semi-separate from judicial proceedings, a la like a federal court decision, a state Supreme Court decision. Congress can't really do much with regards to state function. It absolutely can do something when federal law is being invoked specifically as one of the claims within the case itself. Did you not read the very brief write-up about Alvin Bragg and his case? It is effectively election law was violated, and here are the charges as to why. Here are the payments that were funky, payments with regards to the 2016 election that went over state limits, which are held in New York. It's a dovetailing and it's a workaround. It's a circumvention, really, of federal supremacy that we're seeing. Well, what we're seeing as well is that Congress is actually interested in looking into it. And by the way, I would like to congratulate Kevin McCarthy. While I don't trust him, and while I wouldn't fucking spit on him to put out a goddamn fire, he has held true to his word. He did say that in order to get the speakership, he did say that he would allow this to go forward. He did. He pushed the issue. The Republicans have convened an investigation. On that note alone, he did exactly what he said that he wanted to do. For once, a GOP member didn't cuck immediately and say, well, I said that at the time, but it's actually legally impossible or something to that effect. Now, I suspect McCarthy and the other uniparty GOP members will attempt to throw him under the bus with regards to throw Jim Jordan under the bus. They will attempt to do that. The problem is that there is federal supremacy involved because the headline of the case itself involves federal law. It does not involve state law. It is entirely subjugate. Therefore, the investigation number one should go forth. Alvin Bragg's lawsuit lacks any teeth, but that's not the point. See, Bragg wins anyway. His case is without merit, and he probably knows this. He's simply seeking to launch a counter-assault against the GOP House and then slow walk it as long as possible, which as a DA, he's capable of doing to some degree, in order to hold it over Donald Trump's head. That's the whole goal here. The whole goal is to try to poison his campaign, preferably to keep him from getting the nomination, or if he gets the nomination, to continue poisoning thereafter. And the GOP, by the way, having made its bed, now it has to lay in it, has poisoned itself as well. Now, we see them overstretching on numerous issues right now, et cetera, et cetera. I've already talked about that with regards to mifepristone or whatever the fuck it's called, the abortion pill. Trans issues where they had the high ground and they decided to climb down the hill to take the swampy low ground instead. Inexplicably, the GOP has a habit of fucking doing this, especially when there's a major election that's looming. The GOP on these issues really has made its own bed and now has to lay in it. They've got a situation where if Donald Trump is the nominee, he will be dogged by these legal questions. If Trump is not the nominee, because he's gained a significant amount of support post-indictment, then you have to deal with the more fickle side of the MAGA crowd refusing to get behind whoever would be the nominee. It is a no-win scenario, and I think that they understand this. The Uniparty loves it. Mitch McConnell right now is toasting every night and getting drunk with Nancy Pelosi for this reason. He finds this to be a great idea, a great thing. Bragg is seeking to block a subpoena for testimony from Mark Pomerantz, the former senior prosecutor in his office, as well as other demands for confidential documents and testimony from the district attorney himself, as well as his current and former employees and officials. But you can't do that. Congress absolutely has the right to look into your particular case. It's invoking federal law. That's number one. Number two, it has to do with the private citizen. So this isn't you looking into President Trump or you looking into a senator or something like that, where Congress could reasonably be construed as trying to save its own and cover ass, because it's not the case. The 50-page suit is asking for a federal court to give emergency and permanent relief that would block enforcement of Jordan's subpoena for Pomerantz to testify on April 20th. Pomerantz told Jordan last month that per instructions from Bragg's office, he does not plan to cooperate with the subpoena. As we've seen over the last few years, it's a non-issue anyway. Congressional subpoenas apparently mean nothing now. Congress can command you to appear before them, and there's really nothing that they can do to actually compel you to do so. Eric Holder calling on the phone. Jaffa calling. U.S. District Judge Mary Kay Visosil denied Bragg's request for emergency relief later Tuesday, though the court would still block the subpoena through other forms of relief. She's also set a hearing on the matter for April 19th. So he has lost already, at least on his opening volley, and presumptively will continue to lose, which he deserves. Alvin Bragg should be disbarred entirely, but that won't actually happen. If anything, if Trump gets found on one count to be guilty, Alvin Bragg will have his job forever. Doc Holliday, visiting family in California, hit a big jackpot in South Lake Tahoe yesterday, so Styx gets a tip because he's my favorite YouTuber. Oh, thank you for spreading the wealth around. Just don't lose the rest of your jackpot at a casino or something. Be prudent with your money. Jerkwad152, behind Styx's beard, there is no chin, only a spoon. Let's see here. Okay, we've got the next bit of news. Biden administration officials were involved in Mar-A-Lago raid despite claiming otherwise. Yes, that is right. I do recall in the immediate aftermath of the Mar-A-Lago raid, the Biden White House effectively said, well, we heard about it first on CNN. And I recall that this was a fixture of the Obama administration, actually, and it was. The Obama admin, after the IRS scandal, the AP spying scandal, actually, and also Fast and Furious, Obama came out pressured to even talk to the public and said, hey, you know, I didn't know that this was going on. I heard about it first from CNN. The problem that I posited at the time, and this was years and years ago, I mean, the most latest case would have been, what, 7 or 8 years ago or something like that at this point. Again, showing my age. They claimed that they heard about it first from the legacy media. And what I posited at the time was there are two options. Number one, Obama is telling the truth. He really did hear about Fast and Furious and the IRS scandal and so forth from CNN or MSNBC, in which case he's goddamn incompetent. He doesn't know what the hell is going on, even at the highest levels of his own administration, and that's a big problem. The alternative is that he's lying. He did know what was going on, and this is what I posit. He knew what was going on, and he's shielding himself. He realizes, oh, shit, we got caught out in a scandal. I'll just pretend I'll use a fall person. In the IRS case, Lois Lerner. In Fast and Furious, it was Eric Holder, etc. I'll use a fall guy or a fall gal, and I'll just let them, I'll pay them off, basically. They get their pension, they get their credentials, etc., and they don't get prosecuted because, you know, I run the DOJ. And then I cut him loose, though, because I have to save face. Obama did this repeatedly during his administration. Solyndra, ring a bell? And now Biden appears to be doing the same thing. I'm just going to read a little bit through this. The Biden administration involved itself in the raid of former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago home, despite reports that its officials were stunned to find out about the news on social media, according to the group America First Legal, which obtained internal government documents related to the raid through a Freedom of Information Act request, a FOIA. The evidence further suggests that Biden officials in the executive office of the president and the DOJ unlawfully abused their power, then lied about it to the American people, said Reed D. Rubenstein, America First's legal senior counselor and director of oversight and investigations, in a post on social media Tuesday. This government, it seems, acknowledges no limits on its power to harass, intimidate, and silence political opponents. Rubenstein's comments come after a Freedom of Information Act request by America First Legal found the FBI initially obtained access to Trump records through a special access request from the Biden White House. So this was not, hey, the FBI operating in a vacuum, et cetera, et cetera. It was from the White House itself. Now, that doesn't mean that Biden is commanding a raid. It doesn't mean that Biden is commanding the repatriation of all of these top secret and classified documents. It's not what it means. What it means is that the Biden White House lied. They claimed that there was no foreknowledge by any of them, any point in the administration, of any of these goings-ons. They were stunned when it happened. They were very surprised that the Mar-a-Lago raid happened. But there was a special request to the FBI to actually get it going. So they couldn't have been that surprised, and it couldn't have come from anyone other than Joe Biden, I'm presuming. I'm assuming that the Secretary of Transportation doesn't issue that. I'm assuming that it probably, well, I mean, possibly Blinken or Kamala Harris, but either way, they would have briefed Joe Biden on what was going on. It would have come from the top echelon within the Biden stewardship. So they lied. They lied to the entire public. I'm not surprised, though. They've been doing that the entire time that they've been in office, which way they were selected for. Ozzy's Robots, off topic, but what happened to Lionel's channel? Seems like he had to delete most of his videos. His views are equal to mine. Wrong think? TOS? He might have gotten a strike and done that preemptively or something. I don't know. I can try to ask him. Damian Maddox. Good morning, Sticks. I'm going to the bank today to get a land loan for 5 acres. Excellent. Spend this money before it's worth nothing. That's what I'm going to do. Everyone needs to get more prepared. Clank. Yeah, 5 acres is nothing to shake a stick at. Congratulations. Let's see here. I'm watching the views fill up. Again, there are almost as many people watching on Rumble as on YouTube, as usual. Oh, Lionel got hacked? So someone else deleted him, or he deleted them after he was hacked or something like that? That's news. I like Lionel. I've appeared with him a couple times. Goodness. Anyway, we'll go on. Fill me in the comments there while I go to the next news story here, because we've got Elon Musk trolling the BBC in a big way, big black way. Elon Musk decided to go on a Twitter space with a member of the BBC, a journalist they're from, and some other people that were handpicked there as well. And the BBC was interviewing him. And of course, imagine that you're Elon Musk. You've had, for the last 6 months, you've had nothing but hit pieces against you. The BBC, The Guardian, The Telegraph, so UK media. You've had hit pieces from CNN, MSNBC. You've had Missing Link hit pieces from Vox, Huffington Post, Salon, Slate, and all of the others. Basically, everyone in the legacy media world fucking hates you. That's because you're actually making them belly up to the bar. You're not giving them preferential treatment in the same way the former administration of Twitter did. And so you're on their shit list. So they want to make hit pieces. And the BBC, for some goddamn reason, thought, hey, if we go on to Twitter itself and we appear with Elon and other people that happen to be there, this is going to go over well. We're going to get some good talking points and we'll be able to design a hit piece article. Elon Musk completely goddamn steamrolled them on the issue of the BBC's neutrality. Of course, the BBC being now labeled properly as state-affiliated media, along with NPR. They are state-affiliated. They only exist because of licensing fees. Oi, mate, you got a license for that there TV, that there telly? Oh, God. So we got to send the cops in there. If someone ain't paid their fucking license. It's literally the way the BBC is funded. You're compelled, if you have a TV in Britain, to pay a fee every year to the BBC because you're getting publicly funded programming. And effectively, it's a workaround. It's a way to spread propaganda at taxpayer expense while saying that it's not technically tax funded. Because, of course, you don't have to own a television or any other modern communications method. You don't have to do that. But then Elon Musk went a little bit further, and I love this. He made a little bit of meme. He made a post at this point 4 hours ago, penetrating deep and hard with BBC. I'm just going to let you absorb that. Most of you will get the reference. He's penetrating deep and hard with a big black cock. That's basically what he means. And I like this. I like the fact that one tech CEO over a major company. I mean, new tech is hip and where it's at. Like, I'm streaming on Rumble. I like the people that run Rumble. I like Vahi and the people that run BitChute, Odyssey, Minds, and Substack, and all these other sites. It's nice to see that one mainline Silicon Valley CEO, well, post-Silicon Valley, I think Twitter's largely moving to Texas at this point, has a sense of humor. So yeah, keep penetrating deep and hard into the legacy media. And Elon has actually used the term legacy media at this point. So I take a huge win for a very long-term memetic campaign there. That's a good moniker for them. Their legacy. Nobody cares about newsprint and TV anymore anyway. This is the thing. No, if it weren't for the license, the BBC wouldn't exist. How many people actually tune into it when they're in Britain? How many people are watching that? They still have to pay the goddamn TV license just in order to have a goddamn screen in front of them that can broadcast cable content. By the way, you can bootstrap that shit on the internet anyway. I guess that's probably a felony in Britain, along with owning a knife that's too sharp. You know, you have to be 18 plus in order to buy a steak knife at the store there. It's a little bit of a wonky country. God damn, the Dutch are completely disarmed other than pneumatic weapons. You can still buy sharpened knives at the store and nobody has a problem with it. Yes, a 16-year-old, hey, Britain Stam. Here in the Netherlands, a 16-year-old can buy a steak knife. Over in the United States, they can carry around a firearm, depending on state law, of course. Michael Cohen, sticks, an abandoned plastic factory and landfill caught fire in my city yesterday. Smoke plume visible 50 miles away and even showed up on radar. We'll be keeping an eye out for super mutants downwind. Yes, actually, I talked about that this morning. That was in Indiana, actually, in Richmond, Indiana, the Hofco warehouse. They had effectively a recycling center, and it was full of shit, despite being decommissioned many years ago, if my story is straight. And now it's on fire. Yeah, wonderful. All of the emissions saved by recycling glass bottles have been offset in the course of an afternoon, probably by that fire. Dade Lee Murphy, sticks. I would have waited an eternity to say this about the indictments. To quote Galvatron, this is bad comedy. Fox is saying the BBC license costs £159 for a colour TV and $53.50 for a black and white TV. There are still black and white TVs? I didn't know that they still existed. Most of the time, people just hook up something else like a computer or some shit to a TV screen and then they run it off of that. There's absolutely no idea. There's no reason to get cable these days. You shouldn't have any cable package or on demand for that matter. Shit, between all the things that you've got on the internet, you can watch literally anything that you want, mostly legally, by the way, and there's no problem. It's already there. I don't understand. I haven't watched it other than watching like little kid shows, because I've got a daughter, a year old as of yesterday. Other than like little kid shows, many of which are like vintage programming, I don't watch TV, other than maybe the cooking channel sometimes. Mainly for background noise, although I will say that Miluska does it best, and Rudolph and some of the others. You know, Americans will not get these references. There are some cooking shows that are off the goddamn wall here in the Netherlands. Some of them are Belgian or British or something like that. Like they had Mary Berry. I like Mary Berry. Great British Baking Show. Things like that. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense that you would have to literally pay to hook up a television just because there's a broadcasting corporation that's taxpayer funded. It's funded by, yeah, it's funded by you. That's the whole point. Sigil Stone 17 on Rumble. It's a pity Elon's struggle snuggling a journalist wasn't televised, or it could be up there with that time Dee Snider bodied Al Gore. Yeah, that would be funny. Yeah, we need even more engagement. Next news story, Robert Reich is wrong yet again. I just wanted to point that out. I mean, it's a safe bet, so I'm not really going out on a limb here. His opinion in U.S. politics for The Guardian. Trump thinks his arrest helped his presidential chances. He's wrong. He's rocketing towards a Republican nomination, glad that he admits to that. And alienating independent voters crucial in the general election. Oh, you mean the independent voters who probably will not give half a goddamn shit if the economic situation becomes worse. And unfortunately, virtually all of the economists and banks in the world, yeah, they're planning for a recession later on this year. If that happens, it's going to be a little bit of a rough time, I think, for the Biden stewardship also. You could see a non-incumbent race. You're assuming that he's running against Joe Biden, primarily in this particular article. Joe Biden is 81 years old. He has health problems, and not just of the mental sort. He could easily die or be incapacitated before the 24 election. What happens if the Dems, by the way, I keep asking this, it's rhetorical. What happens if the Democrats nominate Joe Biden? They get him back in there. It's like, oh, okay, 4 more years. He's done an all right job. He didn't accomplish anything that wasn't partisan, but, you know, orange man bad, so we got to stick by our man. They decide to nominate him. And then once he's already nominee, he has a stroke. And all of a sudden he goes Fetterman mode or something like that. Now, Fetterman may have been able to get away with that because his opponent wasn't particularly sophisticated and didn't have a whole lot of qualifications. Do you really think that Joe Biden would be able to fend off a former incumbent if he is incapable of holding a debate or a rally? I don't think that he will. And the fact is that there is at least a low double-digit chance that such a situation happens. The economy could flatten. That I would give that also a low double-digit chance. At the very least, I'd say there's a better than 50-50 chance that it begins stagnating due to interest rates. And Biden will take the blame for that. He's already set up, by the way, to shift the blame to the Fed. I don't think that it'll work in the end because the buck stops here, although there are definitely efforts to keep that from continuing. I noticed that Trump was singularly responsible for everything, even natural disasters that happened when he was the president of the United States. Joe Biden, though, even if it's the result of his own personal executive decision-making, is never responsible for the fallout of what he does. I deeply question Robert Reich's opinion here. I think that Donald Trump is likely to be nominee. There's a 90% chance or better that that happens. He's above 50. His only viable opponent hasn't even announced, and if he's smart, he won't, which is Ron DeSantis. Again, I think save that shot in the locker until 2028. Give Trump a chance. He either wins or he loses. Either way, there's an easy way out for you, an off-ramp. You're governor of Florida. You're doing a good job. You've got good in-state support. There's no reason for you to run. You pledged to the people of Florida, by the way, that you would continue that job. If you are off of the gubernatorial platform and on the campaign trail in other states, it might be a difficulty, I think, for him politically, very easily. I don't have a problem with DeSantis. And by the way, I'll clear the air on that. I always have to point this out for the 10% of DeSantis fans out there that are really, really vehement about it, along with some Trump fans, by the way. I do not have a problem with Ron DeSantis. I've seen posted on the internet about me disliking him or something. Please tell me where I've said that. I don't have a visceral dislike of DeSantis, and if he waits till 28, if he stands down now, I will gladly support him. Trump can't run again. Rand Paul is unlikely to run at this point, although I would support him first and foremost. He's unlikely to run. I would have no problem with Ron DeSantis. I don't find it to be problematic at all. But if you end up in a death match, in a suicidal death match with someone 30 fucking points ahead of you who's already above 50, before any campaigning has really even begun, and you don't hold back and you do that, and you give the Democrats what they want, which is a bruiser in which the presumptive nominee has alienated part of the core fan base, whether it's Trump or DeSantis, I would say that that's bad judgment. I would say that that would be poor judgment on DeSantis' part. As far as this, in February, Ron DeSantis led Donald Trump 45-41 in the Yahoo YouGov poll. Yes, one particular poll. Never led in the aggregate by a long shot, but we'll get past that. Just after Trump said he would be arrested, he moved into the lead. 47% of Republican and Republican-leaning voters preferred him, compared with 39% for DeSantis. Now, after his arraignment, Trump's lead has widened 57-31. Now, the idea is that he's a shoo-in effectively for the nomination. I don't declare him a shoo-in. I simply declare him massively more likely. It's a 90% chance, a 9 out of 10 chance or thereabouts. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. DeSantis would be unwise to even bother joining. As far as the general election, though, goes, part of the reason why Donald Trump has a lack in public support is not really because of independent voters, as Wright claims and stuff. It's not really about that. He can be palatable to the white suburban woman voter, as the DeSantis fans constantly, I notice, trot out. Well, let the Democrats have enough rope and they'll hang themselves on issues like CRT in schools and transgendered drag queen story hour. So why would Trump not be palatable? If you're a white suburban woman, and some of you are, which one are you going to vote for? Trump, who, albeit a very flawed man, and he has his own problems, him, or somebody who wants your 10-year-old to get twerked on by a stripper? Well, I think that we probably already know the answer. The left is overstretching. The biggest problem right now with the GOP has nothing to do with Trump. It has nothing to do with mean tweets. It doesn't even have to do with Trump v. DeSantis. It has to do with the GOP overstretching or getting distracted on certain social issues. So, for example, CRT. They've gone from the realm of, hey, don't teach kids communism and don't sexualize them, to ignoring that issue. They did that before 2022. They're still trying to do it now. On transgendered sort of things, or LGBT, or drag queens, etc. Originally, it was don't sexualize the kids. We just don't want kids going to effectively a strip show. That's a winning issue. The majority of Americans agree with you on that. Instead, now they've diverted it off into, hey, let's disarm transgendered people. Yeah, fuck the Second Amendment. We'll just take guns away from them. Yeah, that's going to be a winning line. That's going to win you a lot of allies within the general election. It's almost like they're trying to sabotage themselves. Trump's not, though. Donald Trump's still bringing the fire. There are a lot of people who don't see it now, but it's just like 2016 all over again. They're expecting it to be like 2020. No, I think it'll be more like 2016. Could be wrong. It could be that Donald Trump fucking sabotages himself, but I'm willing to give him the chance to go Grover Cleveland mode. He may not be perfect, but he was the best president we've had since the first term of Ronald Reagan. Timothy Finch, your video on Arnold reminded me of how T.J. Kirk always complains about economos and how we could let the economy fail. It must be easy with Patreon money. Yeah, Patreon's dying anyway, though, these days. I have to find a different grift, I guess. Ozzy's Robots, how do we know ratings for legacy media are accurate? They lie or gaslight about everything. Can't imagine in 20 years their demographics are still alive. Oh, some of them will be. There are still people that read newspapers. You know, there are people that own parrots. They read the sports page or the funnies, and then they shred it up, and the parrot goes and poops on them. King of Biltong, good morning from Antons in Roanoke, Texas. Hashtag Clank Nation. Rocky, what are all the states should keep a close eye on regarding honking for blue in 2024? Wisconsin, obviously. Arizona, Pennsylvania, all of the above, any competitive state. But it doesn't pay to keep an eye on them in the election. It pays to get out and go knock on doors now. Get people registered, do like Scott Pressler. Get people registered, get people interested, get them knocking on doors, and don't wait. Do it now, because we're not going to get another chance for this. I mean, to be clear, if Trump is finally found guilty, thrown in a jail cell, that's not going to happen. House arrested, the Mar-A-Lago or whatever. And we slip further into oligarchy thereby. And we end up with another 4 years of the kind of globalist swill that we're currently seeing. Times will get harder. It is within your self-interest to take action now. A little bit of action now will save a lot of bit of action later. Although you should be taking self-preservation action anyway. Learn a new skill. Plant in an extra row this spring. Prepare a canning operation. Get that fucking asparagus in the ground now. Although I think it's a little bit late for asparagus in some areas. Dark Gary 92. If Trump isn't the nominee, I'll just write him in. I don't care what the conservatives want. I want a real leader with real solutions. Best economy of my life under Trump. Trump 24. Yeah, I agree. When I see someone dogpiled by the statists and authoritarians that much, I'm sorry, but I can't really support anyone else. I have no problem with DeSantis. If he runs in 28, he's on my short list of people to support. But now's not the time. I deviate, by the way, from Razor Fist on this. He seems to think that it's a good idea for him to get in because, Trump does best under pressure and he'll clobber him in the debates. Maybe that's true. The problem is there's that latent post-MAGA crowd that supports DeSantis because they like Trump's policies, but they don't like Trump, who would be alienated thereby. Now, that's not a huge number of people, but, when you're talking about an election in which a couple of million votes is likely to be the gap over the course of numerous swing states, yeah, it takes on a new importance. The Merv. I thank you for videos and live streams, dude. The Holy Light of Taihu's Thigh Gap, $5. No comment. Thank you. Shaker Silver. Happy post-birthday to your daughter. Was mine too. Oh, excellent. Happy birthday. Sigil Stone 17. You missed my first super chat. I'll just ask again. How is your Rugrats birthday, or is it Dwarf Day in the Netherlands? Oh, my apologies. Yeah, you sent another one early on. I didn't see that because it was all the way at the top. Good morning, Sticks. How is the Rugrats birthday or birthday in the Netherlands? It was fun. Got lots of toys. Had some cake. I made meatloaf, by the way, and it came out a little bit too dense. I put too many breadcrumbs in it, I think. I did something a little, it tasted great. The glaze was great. Somehow, though, it was a little bit too grainy and dense. I think it was the breadcrumbs. Made some deviled eggs, which those are a crowd pleaser. I make excellent deviled eggs, just saying, with paprika or dill. Then plenty of presents, and hanging out and stuff. It's a little bit stressful because I don't do well when there's a lot of people around. It sort of fries me out autistically, I think. Inquisitor Jack, I'd rather defend myself from a trans terror than FBI SWAT. No gun control. Let people get mental health when needed. Defend yourself if necessary. Exactly. I don't want to disarm anyone who wouldn't be considered a criminal lunatic by the founding fathers. And the fact that someone would cross-dress does not make them a criminal lunatic. No, absolutely not. And if taking fucking hormones would keep you from owning a gun, what do you say to all the roid users in competitive sports? You're going to keep them away from the guns because there's a 1 in a million chance they might go postal? Yeah, no thanks. I think that I would rather them own cannons, actually. Next news story, we'll talk about Bud Light. Bud Light suffers bloodbath as longtime and loyal consumers revolt against transgender campaign. Half true, by the way. Their stock is actually up. In Bud Light's effort to be inclusive, they excluded almost everybody else as a St. Louis bar owner. Yeah, there are a number of bars and liquor distributors right now boycotting Budweiser products. Not just Bud Light, but the rest of the sub-brands that they own. So Budweiser, Bud Light, I can't remember the rest because those are the two big ones, but quite a few beers, etc. Here's my point with regards to Dylan Mulvaney, who, again, I know literally nothing about other than the dude is transgendered and happens to be a face of Bud Light. Don't care. Had heard the name, I think, a couple of times before sporadically, and apparently is an influencer of some sort. I have a feeling that the core audience there is not old enough to actually buy a Bud Light, by the way, in the United States. The TikTok crowd, I think, probably averages about fucking 14 or something like that. So, what's the fucking point? It's like Biden's influencers. Hey, we got all these TikTokers to go and get people to vote for us. Oh, their average audience member is 12? That'll work really well. I guess they can pressure their parents into voting for us. That's the idea or something like that. Anyway, here's what I would posit. Who gives a fuck about Bud Light? I don't. I've drank it before, years in the past, although I was never particularly a beer drinker. I always preferred wine. Bud Light is piss water. There's one really great use for it. If there's ever a disaster and all the bottled water has been bought, you can just get light beer and it's basically the same thing. You can cut it with water too. You can make pot beer and it'll help sanitize potentially problematic water systems. Alcohol does wonders for that. And then you'll wander around tipsy. Yeah, your house is half collapsed, but you're half drunk. You don't care. Joking aside, though, does anyone really give a fucking shit about this? I just don't. I don't care what beer people drink, dude. If anything, beer makes you grow man boobs and makes you less masculine through the lowering of your testosterone. So I can't see anything less fitting for Bud Light's flag person to be cross-dressing. I just don't have a problem with it. If you don't like it, don't use the product. I can't boycott it because I wasn't using it to begin with. So E100 Omega 123, learning archery with a recurve bow, way cheaper than compound bows. Downside is recurves have way less knockdown power. I can only hunt small game. I would just get a pneumatic pistol or something. Docky Perky, thanks for the streams and video sticks. I recently realized I had a couple of your occult books you edited from before I had your channel. I have to go through and look at the rest of your books now. There's a lot of them, and 10 more at least coming this year. I am done editing number 6, and I am on number 7 and half done with that. Those are the first edits. I've done a few of the forewords. I'm slow walking it this year because I'm also working on some of my own writing projects, and I have a 1-year-old child, so I don't have quite as much time to edit right now as I have in the past years. Opinionated junkie, Razor was and is for Iraq and the drug war. Yeah, I oppose waging wars of various types. Inquisitor Jack, I don't even want to disarm the criminal loons. The state is a far worse threat. Well, if somebody is engaged in a genuine violent crime, if they're incarcerated, they can't have a gun. The founders would have found someone to be a criminal lunatic if they were like a spree killer or something like that. If they're constantly ideating violence and they show no remorse, etc., they would have disarmed them. That would have been mainly done by their family or community, by the way. It would have been done extra legally. A person simply having a topical mental illness, whether it's dysphoria, depression, bipolar, ADHD, autism, that is not a legal reason to disarm anyone. They are members of the militia. I have ADHD. I guess, according to some of these conservatives, does that mean that I shouldn't be able to own guns? Because I'm probably more responsible with them than most of the so-called conservatives that are claiming so. Shaylock, happy birthday to your little one. Thank you. Silky Johnson, Sticks, if you told your daughter she is the heiress to Clankdom, will she be a benevolent overseer? Is there a baby version of Clank? She's a little bit young to understand human language for the most part. It's mostly mama, dada, kitty at this point. But yes, she does actually enjoy spoon clanking. When I clank my spoon in my coffee to mix up the like the sugar and the creamer, she always laughs at that. I am very, very happy about this, by the way. E100 Omega 123, do you think AH is having their stock artificially propped up a la ESGs? Drink Shiner if you want good beer, by the way. I'm not going to drink any beer. Yeah, Anheuser-Busch probably, yeah, they are getting a boost from that. Their sales are probably down, their stock up, but in the end, it won't make much of a difference. Try getting someone who's drank Budweiser for the last 30 years to switch brands. I think it'd be like pulling teeth. Taiwan, we have a strategy to win the war. We are going to spam Chinese leaders with Sticks videos until they back down. Yeah, you can get them to block you on Twitter and elsewhere if you just say Free Tibet, by the way. Next news story, we've got live updates with regards to the Pentagon papers, the Pentagon leaks, rather. UAE rejects AP report on leaked U.S. intel that alleges Russian officers deepen ties with Emirati government. I think that that's probably a lie. Biden spoke to parents of journalist Evan Gershkovich, White House says. Nobody cares about that. A journalist was imprisoned in Russia, I think. And various allies of the United States saying that there are serious levels of inaccuracy with regards to the Pentagon leaks. Of course, that goes beyond Ukraine. The story is being cast off as being about Ukrainian troop movements and readiness and Russian casualties and shit like that. That's a big lead up. That's fine. That is part of the Pentagon leaks that were made last month. That's perfectly fine that you're reporting on that. So you're leaving out the bulk of the documents that have to do with spying, that have to do with Russia and other entities getting off the table help from third parties that aren't supposed to be helping them or are not doing so publicly, like Ukraine and boots on the ground from several NATO members, Russia getting help from certain Middle Eastern countries. All of these things top secret, by the way. Now, again, under normal circumstances, I would not believe that the leak was real at all. I would say, okay, the U.S. government came out with this leak in order to muddy the waters. When I see the differential reporting by groups, though, that are literally in lockstep with Biden. So the Biden administration openly colludes with the legacy media at this point to spread propaganda. And I see that a lot of the content that was there is not being spread at all by the legacy media. That makes me raise my fucking goddamn eyebrows. I have a feeling that the leak is fundamentally real, in which case the situation in Ukraine's not going well. The United States is spying on its allies, has new technology that it hasn't told anybody about, and the Russians are trying to get in the third world behind our backs, and they're having some degree of success doing so. Wonderful. What a happy fucking time to be alive, isn't it? It's totally not worse than the last Cold War. How many Cold Wars, by the way, we're going to have? Like, there'll be another rapprochement for like 5 years, and everyone will be hunky-dory, and then they'll have another 9/11, and all of a sudden, everything will fall apart again. Chris Williams, striking old content, talked about the articles. The one that got me is the article of whites being racist for just being white. I upload everything everywhere, like my Rumble channel, Comic Freak. Shout me out. Consider Comic Freak to be shouted out, Chris. Tortheo, look at Bud boycott results on Not the Bee. Yeah, I know. The boycotts do have an impact. I would say, how long are those people going to be able to be sober? Or drink another beer? Oh, wait, most of the other corporate beers have gone woke too. Why not just make your own microbrew or something? This is an opportunity for non-woke microbreweries to spring up all around the country. Inquisitor Jack, if they're allowed on the streets, they can carry. Exactly. If a person is not asylum worthy or prison worthy, they should be able to have a gun. Now, that might be difficult under the pistol brace rules. It might be difficult if they're missing an arm or something, I suppose. But rebels have sex appeal. Hey, Sticks, the Rumble mobile app is garbage. You can't even Rumble Clank on mobile. A FOSS app like Odyssey matches the YouTube app, but Rumble? See, I don't use the app. I just use the web experience. I know nothing about apps for the most part. I've separated my life from phones as much as possible because fucking phones suck dick. Little tiny screen, less processing power. Also, you're wasting your time. Like when you're using it, you're supposed to be doing something else. When you're out in the woods, instead of constantly taking video footage of the flowers, just go and smell a flower. It's fine to take some photographs and stuff and put them online. I know I've done this before, but when I'm out in the woods or walking along the street, I don't use my phone unless I have some compelling need. I'm getting a call or I have to check the time for some compelling reason. That's it. Ozzy's robots. The point is getting the trans LGBT drag green, etc. messages bombarded down your throat 24/7 by D&I women at woke companies that seemingly hate men. Yeah, ESG is a cancer. I would point this out. I have no problem with people for their identity. Someone wants to, cross-dress or they're trans, they're gay, whatever. I don't have a problem with them. And I think they should own guns because guns are great. That being said, this level of corporate wokeness is basically an attempt to sanitize the monopolistic, grifting, grasping, chiseled chin and sticky white suit and black suit and sticky white shirt sort of a view of corporatism. So like the 80s view, like the Reagan era view that you get from Brazil or something. That's the way corporations work. They are convoluted. There's backstabbing. There's grifting. There's, hey, fuck this native tribe. They've got a plant we want, so we're taking it from them through some legalism, through their government, through arms deal or whatever. That's the way corporations work, and that's the way they deliver profit to shareholders, and that's the way that they proceed to hire more people and create better products, etc. It's not a fun business. It's a nasty business. This is an attempt to sanitize them by painting a rainbow over the cover of that corporation, and it really reminds me of something else, the 15-minute city thing, which I've had an experience in here in the Netherlands. If you look, for instance, I know this is going a little bit off into the brush, but I'll try to explain. Look at history. Have you ever heard of the commie block, like the Stalinka? You've got a 15-minute city, effectively. It's got its own medical center, its little school and stuff. Everything's self-contained, a few businesses, and then places where people live. But it's boring, and it's fucking hideous. And it doesn't really make sense at the end of the day because you're cramming people in and they don't really enjoy their life. They've just got the basic necessities because that's all you can afford to them. For people in the lower class in the Soviet Union, life did actually get better in the Stalinka period, by the way. About a third of the population did much better if they weren't gassed or exterminated in some other way. They are still building this kind of style of building in the Western world, even in the most wealthy of countries. For instance, when we were living in Diemen, the building that we were living in effectively was a slab-style quasi-commie block. Yes, the apartments are bigger. Yes, the amenities are better. But ultimately, the basic premise is fundamentally the same. There was a medical center right up the block. There was a little school right down the block. There were a couple of businesses, etc., on the ground level. And then people had their apartments of various sizes. The only difference is that they created a facade on the outside to make it look like the building, well, like the one superstructure, which was roughly donut shaped, although more square, was different buildings. They put different colored facades of bricks up on the outside. People were already complaining only a couple of years after the manufacture of that block, and it wasn't cheap where we were living before. It was in a fairly nice location. We weren't living in the fucking ghetto or anything like that. There were already complaints about the cracks in the wall and cracking paint and pipe problems and all these things. It's the same exact thing, but they've convinced people that it's different by simply painting it different colors. It's exactly the same. The density is a bit lower. Okay, it looks better than a commie block. The interior's bigger, but the overall construction quality, etc., is roughly the same. But people don't call them commie blocks. They call them green housing now. Again, that was a fairly nice place by modern standards. If you're living anywhere in the Amsterdam area, you're not going to find something better than that unless you're shelling out 2,000 fucking euros a month. Wooly, have you seen the trailer for the upcoming Fallout series? Great job, Sticks. Keep it up. Fallout series? Yeah, no thanks. Fallout is supposed to be a video game series. If you mean like a TV series, no thank you. I'll take a look at it, though. Sigil Stone on Rumble. I heard there's a group of brewers trying to turn sewer water into beer. They're not sure what to call it yet since Bud Light is already taken. Yes, and Hunter Biden's piss was also taken, so they've got to go back to the drawing board. Rebels have sex appeal. Understood. I'm smelling the roses except when I'm clanking. Rumble is doing too undirty if they don't allow Rumble rants on mobile when YouTube does on YouTube. Yeah, I guess that their app pisses a lot of people off, but again, I've never used it, so I wouldn't know. Sparky, legally, the U.S. protecting Taiwan from China is like China protecting Puerto Rico from the U.S. No, it wouldn't be quite the same because Puerto Rico is actually a U.S. territory. Taiwan is not recognized as a Chinese territory except by China. Note that the United States has really screwed the pooch, though, by not recognizing it as a sovereign entity. I think we should reverse course and recognize Taiwan as the lord of all of China, legitimately. That way they can't be attacked because they become an ally. And Sparky, happy birthday to the little clanker. Thank you. The Flaxen Saxon take $5 for me and $5 for all my homies who don't send messages with their super chats. Well, thank you. 867 Polo sent $9.99 without a comment. Thank you as well. And Wolf on the Plains. Ron Paul was on Timcast late last night. Great episode. Everyone thought of going on Lotus Eaters. Sargon and Styx would be epic. I would love to go on Lotus Eaters, Timcast, and all the others. It's just right now, being in the Netherlands and having a child, my schedule is fucked. So I can't really do appearances and debates right now, although I keep getting challenged to debates and invited to appearances. I think I bounced almost 100 of them in the last year. Rather sad, but family first. You got to parse your work and your actual living life. Granderson, even Republican voters want more gun laws. Why don't their representatives? Which is, by the way, false. Just to be clear, if you really closely cherry pick polls, you can come out with a bare majority of Republicans that want gun reform. The problem is that when you're polling, you have to be really amorphous. So it's like, hey, do you want to lower the number of kids that are shot by AR-15s? Well, who wouldn't? Of course. I don't want any kid shot by any gun. Yeah, I'm going to say yes. And all of a sudden they extrapolate in their poll to mean, well, this person means they want more gun control. Because clearly there is nothing else in human history that could possibly work to keep kids safe. I hate to tell people this. There will always be kids and other people who are ignored, by the way, when they're shot, who get shot or stabbed or blown up or thrown off a cliff or they fall off a roof or they drown in a swimming pool. They get hit in the head with a hammer by some vindictive relative. I hate that that's the fact, but it will always happen. I did a little bit of research last night into gun crime statistics in the United States. And I looked at even the somewhat inflated gun violence totals in the United States. So if we're just looking at gun deaths, this includes accidents. It includes suicides, which aren't a crime at all. And that's about a third of those totals. Accidental discharge, stuff like that. And then also homicides, including those that are actually justifiable homicides. And you'll notice when you look at the polling that that is hidden in the actual numbers. And I calculated it roughly. And I figured that if we use the low estimate for communist China under Mao, as far as the number of people that were executed there, so we're not including famine deaths, we're not including people that were maybe executed, we're not including deaths in conflicts internally or externally, we're just counting those that were executed. It would take about 600 years for as many Americans to be killed by guns by all means as just those that were executed over the course of a few decades in Mao's China. Yeah, I think we are safer because of the fact that we're able to own guns. Yes, I want that 5'0" chick who with the abusive ex-boyfriend who beat her up constantly and now has finally gotten away from him to have her 38 in her purse. Absolutely. Yes, I want the 18-year-old kid that's left home alone for a couple days because the parents have to go out on work or whatever to be able to defend the home when the burglars break in and deploy the shotgun. Yes, I want the person who's living out in the middle of goddamn nowhere, Wyoming, or somewhere in the fucking Rocky Mountains where there's fucking grizzly bears and catamounts. I don't want to deprive them of the AR-15. If anything, I would say, hey, the 5.56 is not going to work very well against the grizzly bear. You might want to think about upgrading at some point. I want everyone effectively to own guns. Guns are great. A lot of the people that hate them have never even fired one. And no, it's actually not the case that the majority of people want new gun laws. If you pose them individually, you can sometimes get a majority of the people that want them. Like expanded background checks. If you sanitize the language, just say, well, So many people are able to purchase a gun non-illicitly and not go through a background check. By the way, that's not actually what happens. Go to a gun store and try to buy a gun if you don't believe me. But we just want more background checks. Okay, yeah, most people support that because they're fucking stupid. Then when you pair it with everything else they want, so ban the AR-15 or all similar weapons, magazine restrictions on attachments, raising the age to 21, which is blatantly unconstitutional to purchase at least certain firearms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When you mash them all together, when you look at the panacea that's offered for a solution to gun crime in the United States by the left, how many people support all of those proposals? Like 1% or something like that. You've alienated virtually the entire population. It makes no sense. If anything, what we need to do is subjugate the Second Amendment to its original purpose and meaning. Post-Bruin, especially, this is a legal argument to be made too. There should be no restriction on any magazines. There should be no tax stamping system for destructive devices, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, you should be able to mail order a Tommy gun if you want to. I don't see how this is going to make the nation less safe. Dude, there's going to be psychos out there anyway. They can already get guns, right? Well, then wouldn't you think that there's a maximized level of gun crime absent any addressing of mental illness? There has to be some maximal level because supposedly these people are going postal. Mostly it's the result of mental illness. That's not actually the case, but that's what the liberals posit. Well, people's minds are getting fried. We have to be careful about those guns. Okay, well, then there's a maximum possible crime rate. Up the ante on mental health, put people back in asylums, and give everyone else their machine guns. You should see less gun crime. Really, the problem with gun crime in the United States, though, is gang violence. It's handgun related usually. It involves criminal street gangs, and it often involves drugs or trafficking of some sort. It's adjacent to other forms of crime. But the problem is that the cities in the United States aren't willing to crack down on these things, and it's beginning to bleed out of those cities into surrounding areas as they become more densely populated. There you go. That's all you have to do. Just fucking address the problem of U.S. cities, and you've addressed half of the gun violence in the whole country and a vast plurality of the gun deaths that don't have to do with suicide, a majority of that as well. And then get people off antidepressants. If someone has to be doped up to the eyeballs on antidepressants or antipsychotics all the time, they should probably be in therapy. They probably should not be walking around on the street. And if they are capable of doing that without doping themselves up to the eyeballs, then leave them alone. I don't care if they own a cannon. They can literally go out right now and buy a black powder cannon like the founders suggested that people should have at home for defense against them Injuns. They can go out and get one right now. They can make their own black powder. Hell, the process is not that difficult, although you might want to check in with your state and local regulations and call up the feds and say, hey, is it legal for me to corn this shit? Yeah, you can do that. You can buy a flamethrower through the mail in the United States. An actual word, not like the not a flamethrower from the Boring Company, Elon Musk, by the way, Tesla subjugate. You can buy a real flamethrower in the United States. What's the problem? By the way, when has there been a mass killing by flamethrower, despite their widespread availability? I would think that if somebody comes at you with a flamethrower that's capable of spitting flame for a good 60 seconds, and it can be thickened into a napalm-like mixture and melt the meat right off the goddamn bones of your victims. You put one of those on, get into a van, get into a crowded area and start spraying, you'll kill hundreds of fucking people. People will be melted together. You won't even be able to recognize the remains. They might not even know who died for weeks or months to come. So far, despite the relative lack of flamethrower control, it doesn't seem to be an oft-chosen weapon. I wonder why. The Patriot Chiro tried to use 4chan. How the fuck do you use that shit? It's just numbers and symbols and shit posting and PRN, especially politically incorrect, had no views. LOL. LMAO even. Jacob Yates, have you made a cookbook? Your recipes sound tasty. In the future, we're planning to do that, yeah. Please send no more super chats. I have to go off here. We're running up on an hour. Steve M. Thoughts on Washington State's ban on assault-style weapons? It will be immediately injuncted and defunct very quickly. Tyler Morrison. Sewer water beer? Let's call it Bud Shite. Sparky, you missed my first super chat. It's impossible for me to find it probably at this point. Opinionated Junkie. Bikes need to stay off roads. Here they do because you have bike lanes. 69 a drummer. Happy birthday to the daughter. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to speed through it because it's we're almost at an hour here and later on, of course, I've got to cook things. Got to cook dinner. Il Sarto, open Brave browser. Go to Rumble. Click dots in lower right. Add to home screen. Rumble app plays in the background. Rants on mobile. Clank on. Okay, advice, I guess, to people on Rumble for how you can use the app in the background and use rants. I know nothing about that, though, so I'm just taking Il Sarto's word for it. And Fallen Hero 4567 sent $1 without a comment. Thank you very much. But yeah, I'm going to go offline here. Thank you to the over 5,000 people watching live. Keep in mind, I will be live tomorrow as well. Try to go actually a little bit longer if I have time to do so. I think the weather is going to be a little bit nicer. One more. BW, I thought after you went off the other day, don't you think now they've gotten away with kangaroo court for Trump, they keep going after MAGA anyway? Yeah, exactly. So you might as well stand and fight. That would be my point. There's no reason to back down now if you assume that the black pillory is actually real. And of course, Hong Kong, some elements of it I do believe actually are. So keep up the good fight and self-improve, of course. That's about all. Peace out.